Thank you. So I'm delighted to have our special guest from the London Stock Exchange, Giordano Sassaroli. And what we just discussed now, he will provide us an overview about the Elite program, which is working with more than 1,000 companies across Europe to actually find improved investments. Please.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm delighted to be here in Vienna today. I'm the head of digital services in Elite. Elite is a company of the London Stock Exchange Group devoted to help small, medium enterprises across Europe, across the world, to get easier access to finance. I'm head of digital services, but I will not speak about our digital platform today, not entirely. I will start. I would like to share our experience and what we have learned from our companies about what are their needs and what worked for us, helping them in the ladder towards accessing funding. I will start with a report. It's a report that the London Stock Exchange Group produces every year. The third year now that they do this. The report is called 1,000 Companies to Inspire Europe. This report collects the fastest growing small medium businesses across Europe by revenues, taking them as an inspirational examples for other smaller but not less ambitious companies. And of course, they are inspiring. We see they can claim altogether these 1,000 companies. They can claim 10,000 patents or trademarks altogether, and they drive economic growth through their own growth. They demonstrated a 24% average growth rate in the last 3 years, and we believe we have a duty to help them in getting access to long-term and patient capital to help them grow and become the large employers of the future, specifically in this period when we are observing an unemployment rate across Europe around 15%, while these are the companies who drive the employment rate to improve. This report is an occasion, and of course the report is available. I have a few copies if you want to grab one later. This report is an occasion to celebrate the success of these companies, but also a moment to observe, to understand what are the needs of these companies to grow more. And of course, we have discussed it this morning. The first need is getting access to capital, getting access to pools of capital. Focusing specifically, this is a report that was published yesterday or 2 years ago in the occasion of Lush, and it shows. I grabbed just two charts showing the total capital invested on the tech ecosystem of Europe during 2018, and it is a positive trend. Clearly indicates a growing interest from investors in the tech ecosystem of Europe, both in terms of size, but most interesting in terms of diversity of number of investors. We have reached over 2,000 different institutions who have participated in at least one investment round in Europe during the last year. This is an indication of an increased attractiveness of the European ecosystem toward the investment community. Of course, that different types of investors are required for different types of companies, depending on the stage where they are in their life. This is quite obvious, but it is clear that while companies move from their startup stage to later stage, getting closer to the public markets, they move from a need of a more impulsive short-term investment towards a more patient, long-term investment. Even when they decide not to go public, but remaining in the private space, they still need for long-term investment for growth. And of course, this reflects on different types of investors, different profiles of investors. I like this picture because it's clearly represents in one picture our requirement, our need, matching company needs with pools of liquidity. This is what we are talking about. So if we are discussing about gaps, basically we are discussing about how to bring companies closer to the right source of capital, and making them talk, meet, creating the opportunities and the occasions and the frameworks for them to talk each other. So let's look at some more deeply at the situation. If we look at companies, this is a global numbers, not specific on the EU or high-tech companies. Actually, today in the recent years, only 10% of companies actually raise capital on public markets. 90% decide to remain private. There is nothing wrong with it. It's a matter of realizing the proportion of things. The point is looking deeper into this private source of capital. What European companies are looking when we say private sources of capital? Well, we have to realize that the vast majority of capital for European companies, specifically, even more specifically on small, medium enterprises, is bank debt. Nothing against banks, of course. Again, nothing wrong with it, but we always say that diversity in the sources of capital is healthy. So if we want to move the attention of companies from their traditional source of capital, the bank loans, we have to ask ourselves, what are the drivers for companies when making this decision? Is this decision really an informed decision? Are they aware of the options they have? Well, I want to share our experience. Well, observing what is needed by companies, based on our experience in Elite, it can be summarized in 3 points. Well, the slide shows 5, but they can be summarized in three elements. That is knowledge, network, and preparation. Knowledge means helping the company to become more aware of what are the funding options, what are the possibilities, what are the forms of capital, what is required to them to get credibility and visibility in front of an investor. Network, you have to create opportunities. If you keep companies on one side and keep saying that you have fantastic companies and you keep investors on the other side and keep saying that there are pools of capital, they will never meet. You have to create occasions. You have to match them to make through network, through events, through creating connections between them. This will increase the likeliness of opportunities of collaboration across companies, of collaboration between companies and partners and advisors, because of course companies need advisors in this journey, and opportunities between companies and investors. And third, preparation. the vast majority of small, medium enterprises are not ready to sit in front of an investor. They are not structured for that. They don't have a governance process. They don't have a management culture. Some of the companies we work with don't even have a strategic plan. So they need to be credible even before being visible in front of an investor. So when we say what are the needs of companies, it's having what are the issues we should help companies to deal with, to solve, to improve their and to move them closer to the funding options. We have in the London Stock Exchange we have created the Elite program. So it is a program designed for small medium enterprises to help them achieving this. In terms of positioning, well, the London Stock Exchange, as most exchanges, have a number of markets and segments. Some of them designed for smaller companies, like the growth markets, like the AIM market at the London Stock Exchange and the Milan Stock Exchange. Elite is positioned in the private market, aiming at companies who are more scale-up, who are out from their startup phase, and look at funding that should support their long-term growth. What we provide to address the issues that I mentioned before, where one, we help them understand their maturity level, understand their needs and their priorities, understanding what growth mean for you, what growth means. It might mean entering a new market. It might mean becoming more structured in managing risks and finance sources. It might mean managing talents differently. So the first thing is awareness. Second, the second step, we have designed this program that is a combination. The program lasts 12 to 18 months and combines training, workshops, and events, occasions to meet and to enter the network. This covers the knowledge and the preparation part that I mentioned before. Then there is a network. We constantly have them meet each other. I will provide some numbers later to meet each other. The third thing, we have created a digital platform, an online private placement platform that helps streamlining the process of capital raising, simplifying the steps connected to the structuring and preparation of a deal, lowering the costs, because of course one barrier in raising capital is also related to the cost and time required to complete the operations. Some numbers, we are proud to say we have just achieved the milestone of 1,000 companies in our network. 1,000 companies that are distributed, for the vast majority of them is distributed across Europe. During 2018, we have expanded in other geographies. Yesterday, we launched our class in Ohio, in the United States. The day before, we were in Mexico. Earlier this year, we launched in Brazil, in Saudi Arabia, and we have an ongoing program in the Western Africa. We have a very large presence across the entire Europe, really diversified in terms of industry and in terms of revenue range of size of companies. Around 60% of them are under 50 million of revenues per year. Looking at the investors, of course, we have 1,000 companies in the network, but we have also 250 advisors, partners, and 200 investors. Most of them are private equity investors in terms of investor type. 60% target SMEs in terms of target. Quite obviously, we are a program designed for them. This helps us matching these two pools, companies from one side and investor on the other. I would like to, a few more numbers. About the interest of these companies in raising capital. Of course, they enter the program, and this is a program that is clearly designed to help them getting closer to capital. But some companies just enter to get more mature, to get trained, to understand, and to prepare for growth. Actually, if we look at our story, I haven't mentioned, we launched in 2012. We launched in 2012 in Milan, connected with the Milano Stock Exchange, and then we grow progressively. So in these 6 years, we have seen over 800 corporate transactions. The vast majority of them are M&A or private equity VC transactions. A few of them, 22 of them, were listings on the public market, and 45 of them issued bonds on the public market. There are good numbers. I would like to tell 3 stories to do more practical about what we have done specifically on the capital raising. The first is a standard equity transaction of a fintech company, eToro. eToro is an Israeli company with presence in over 140 countries. They joined Elite in 2015, aiming to raise capital for growth. They raised $100 million with a Series E operation in March. This is basically an example of how the digital platform can help saving time and reducing costs in such type of operations. The second story is a basket product. This is something that we have created specifically for our companies. Through this product, 10 companies issued a bond, a debt product together. These bonds were joined together and grouped together in a single asset that raised the capital through the participation of the European Investment Bank and Cassa Depositi e Prestiti, that is an Italian promotion bank. 2 institutional investors that would not have usually in their radar companies like this. They singularly, independently, they would not be able to reach this size of capital raising, would not be able to reach the interest of these investors. Putting them together in a basket, they can get better conditions and get the possibility to have these investors in their capital. With a risk diversification for the investors that is positive through the joint collaboration between the participants. The last one is an example of a listing process using the platform to accelerate and reduce the cost of entering the public market. This was a few weeks ago. Digital Value, an Italian technology company, who entered the market and raised 22 million through this operation. So conclusions. We have seen positive indicators of a growing interest from investors in the European ecosystem. We have the proof, of course. We know we have exceptional and ambitious companies. Matching them means, of course, working on policies, working on facilitation, creating additional funds for sure. We in Elite have an successful experience in helping companies and creating opportunities to network with these communities. Hopefully, the same model might be extended and applied also to other ecosystems outside the SME world. Thank you.